And Chair George, members of the commission, this is Stephanie Caldera, your commission assistant. At this time, I do believe the audio recording for today's afternoon is now restarted.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, everyone, and welcome to our division directors who are joining us this afternoon. I'm going to turn it over to Acting Director Felden for the kickoff. And it looks like today, instead of a director's apostrophe S report, we may have a plural director's report. So why don't you go ahead and introduce that, Deputy Interim Director?
That's a great way to put it. Thank you very much, Chair George. For the record, Leah Felden, Interim Director at DEQ. And as Chair George just alluded to, I've invited all of our administrators here today, and our administrators contribute to this report every time. And typically the director gives it, or we do some sort of hybrid of director and administrators. And today the administrators are taking on the report. I might add a bit here and there as we go along, but I'm going to invite each of them to present their items today. So we'll go in order. We may not hit every single thing, but I do want to start with the laboratory division and our administrator, Lori Pillsbury, who has just come on camera there. So welcome, Lori, and thanks for being here. And please take your report away.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners, Chair George. It's very nice to be here this afternoon. I appreciate the invitation. So I am Lori Pillsbury. I am the Laboratory and Environmental Assessment Division Administrator, the lab administrator for short. And our item focuses today on, I'm pleased to announce that our first big community effort to receive community input on where we will put our next 20 sensor locations. And as a reminder, the sensors are a trademarked lower cost sensor that the laboratory developed to monitor for PM 2.5. We currently have about 70 PM 2.5 locations around the state. And with the passage of Senate Bill 762 in the 2021 legislature, we were able to bring on a community outreach person and funding for an additional 20 locations. And so we launched a survey just last week for community input on where those additional locations should be placed. We did propose some locations in that launch of the survey, and these locations were proposed based on areas that don't currently have a monitor, counties without monitors, which tend to be more rural interior counties or coastal counties, areas commonly impacted by wildfire that are not being monitored, areas with environmental justice concerns, and we did take initial agency input from forestry and the health authority. So we're really excited so far. I had our person check this morning. We have 185 responses to our survey so far, which is very exciting. So we're really excited to see what input we will get from the community around their public interest and concern for wildfire smoke. And the survey closes February 1st. And I believe there's a link in the director's report that you all can check out the survey. And on that link, there's also a link to our sampling plan that has the initial proposed locations, which are general locations, not, a street name or anything. It's basically an example would be Gold Beach is a location that's proposed. So you can follow that link to find out some more details on the sensor and the proposed locations. And I'm happy to take any questions on this item if you have any.
I'll just say I got the survey through my professor hat and I took it. So thank you.
Awesome. It's very exciting. Thank you.
So now you know who one of those responses is.
The identified one. So
Anybody else wish to add themselves? Thank you very much. That's exciting.
thank you so much, Lori. Thanks for the great update. Appreciate it. Okay, so next up we have our air quality division, 2 items with Administrator Mirzaka Lili, who's here with you in person.
Good afternoon, Chair George, Commissioners. Ali Mirzaka Lili for the record, Air Quality Administrator, and Happy New Year to you. It's good to see everybody, and it's good to be here in person. 2 quick items for to report out, and both are related to EPA actions. One is EPA January 6th of this year proposed a tightening of PM 2.5 standard. This is after the last administration decided to just keep the standards the same and not change them. There was a petition for reconsideration that was granted by this administration. They reviewed the standard. The proposal is a range 9 to 11 with taking comments to current standards at 12 microgram per cubic meter, with taking comments to down to 8. Obviously, based on, depending on what they decide the final standard to be, we have some, we may not have impact to us. They're also proposing to maintain the current 24-hour standard at the current levels, but taking comments at lowering it to 25 microgram per cubic meter. Candidly, there's, we're looking at the science behind the standards, and it seems to warrant lowering of the standards. But we're looking at it and going to, work with EPA, and certainly we'll comment appropriately while we review this. This given the wildfire impact and the how it impacts our air quality and sort of exceptional events issue that comes up and intersects there. I can't tell you exactly what our attainment future will look like. It will be based on, depending on when they finalize it, it will be based on a 3-year design value that they call it. It's likely be 2020, 21, and 2022 data. So we have the data. We just need to process it and consider the exceptional events. The other thing in front of you is a set of principles that EPA published for a permitting program addressing environmental justice in the permitting program. And those set of 8, we were in conversation with EPA. This is not a binding set of principles for states, but it is for the use of EPA regions as they evaluate their own permitting program and as they evaluate state programs. As you know, we brought to you a set of rule updates. And then you approved the end of last year with a permitting program. I think that's it's a good down payment towards incorporating some of these principles. I think we'll be engaging in another sort of revision to our minor source review program, as I promised you in the last November. And when we engage that, we'll be cognizant of these principles and trying to incorporate that to our rulemaking. So be happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioner Slusher.
Thank you, Chair. I'm curious which of these principles you think, when I read them, it seems like we've made progress in implementing several of these. Which of the principles do you think present the biggest challenge to the agency?
Mitigating disproportionately high impact. That's something that mitigation, what that looks like. And that means sort of embedded in that is in identifying disproportionately impacted communities. So those are that's some of the work that we'll be doing in our mapping process and identification of those, I think, and prioritizing this. This is not something that we can do all at one time, but how we address that and what's the mitigation. We don't have a cumulative impact requirements in place, and some of this alludes to that, and we'll be looking for guidance from you as to how we start addressing that.
Thank you, Chair George and Commissioner Schlesser. This is one maybe I'll add just a little bit for broader context. DEQ is in the process of hiring 2 EJ positions right now. And we are pretty far along in that process, although we don't have these positions hired yet. One is a staff person that resides within DEQ in our budget, but it's actually a staffer for the Environmental Justice Council, the Governor's Council. But the other position is one we have that's it's a research analyst position. And we were given funding, and so was the Oregon Health Authority, to develop the mapping tool that that Administrator Mirzakalili just referred to. So that's going to be a more specific Oregon look at EJ communities versus the federal EJ screen, which of course we have access to that now and can use that, and it can be a useful tool, but this mapping tool is going to be Oregon centric. And so I think that's kind of the start of how we, as the administrator said, start to identify the communities, because you see these principles. Some of these principles are about, are you communicating? Are you, ensuring opportunities for meaningful public engagement? Is the process transparent and understandable on the one side? And then some of these principles are really about the actual impact, right? Who are the communities being impacted? How are they being impacted? Are you mitigating? That's the harder part, as the administrator said, that we need to start getting our arms around.
Chair George and Director Fell, thank you for that. If I may just add, I'd be remiss not to mention the area source pilot program that we're getting to stand up. Finally, that's something that's part of Clean Air Oregon came to us, and we've had some struggles getting that started. That we're working on. Hopefully, we can come on, have a report out to you later this year as to where we are. But that would also help us to identify tools and build capacity internally to address those issues.
I just had a quick question, and I don't want us to get too far afield, but I think this federal EJ screen, I think is something when it came out in its draft form that we may have discussed just a little bit. I remember taking a look at the draft, and it didn't appear to identify any tribal nation reservations on it. I have to admit, I did not have the bandwidth to follow that through to its conclusion, so I don't know if that's the case. Does anybody happen to know? Because if they didn't, in my opinion, that's atrocious. But further on, I would want to make sure that DEQ is doing that. If the federal EJ screen is being used as a base and they haven't included something that rudimentary, I would certainly hope that we would add that.
Sure, I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Thank you, Ali. Okay, with that, next we are to the Water Quality Division, and we have Administrator Jennifer Weigel here with us to report on 2 items for water.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Jennifer.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Again, I'm Jennifer Weigel. I'm the Water Quality Administrator. As Director Feldman knows, I've got 2 items for you today. The first is an update on an item that we have had come to you on a number of different times over the past year, which is the memorandum of agreement with Department of Agriculture, which I wanted to ensure everybody knew had been signed as of very recently. As of the 9th was the date of the second signature on the MOA. It's been posted on our respective websites. Notices have been sent to commenters. And so that is out there, and we're very happy to be able to report that that has been signed and finalized. And now to the hard work of implementation. So that's where we are. So I just wanted to provide that quick note. The other thing I wanted to note, which I believe in addition to being in the director's item, you may have also received a separate email about, we published our annual NPDES permitting report, which really goes through and provides kind of where we are in terms of addressing the NPDES permit backlog. So it addresses the status of where we are with individual permits and also general NPDES permits. If there are any that are continue to be delayed and extended, we include notes about the causes around some of those. I'm happy to report that we continue to make good progress in chipping away at that backlog. We're down to 55% currently administratively extended, down from our original starting point a number of years back, around 85, 90% is where we were starting. So we continue to make good progress. Like a lot of the agency, we've had a fair amount of turnover in that program. We have been diligently hiring, and we have a really great onboarding and mentoring process within the program to bring new permit writers up to speed. And so there's been a lot of attention being paid to both recruiting and bringing on new staff. So we did not completely hit all of our targets that we intended to this past year, but we did make forward progress, and a lot of the just change in staffing, retirements, promotions, moving to different parts of the program or taking new jobs have just there's been a lot of turnover, and we've been working really hard on that over the last year. So
Vice Chair Brasso.
I just want to acknowledge I appreciate that you're saying that there's still work to do and quite a bit of work to do, but just want to acknowledge that that's big in terms of that kind of decrease. And so when you get to an appropriate milestone, whether that's below that 50% mark, it's probably worthwhile celebrating and just taking a moment to do that, because it's unappreciated work, unfortunately, and yet it's hard and important work.
Absolutely. And so believe me, we also completely understand and appreciate that when, for circumstances beyond your control, you're short-staffed, it makes it very difficult to hit the timelines that you have laid out for yourself. It sounds like, as you said, you've worked very hard to replace those folks and to bring them up to speed as efficiently as you can. Do you anticipate that, you'll be able to kind of recoup the losses and get back on the original schedule? Or are we going to have to adjust our schedule out? What's your take on that?
Yeah, Chair George, so there's a number of different schedules that really govern how we're doing our planning work. One of those is we do have the settlement agreement, which addresses where we committed for permits that were beyond a certain amount of administrative extended, addressing those within a certain period of time. We're ahead of that schedule and those commitments, and we continue to be ahead of that commitment. So really where we are now is looking at, what is our 5-year plan? What is our one? And then we do annual plans as well. So for each annual plan, we're looking at the data we have in house and setting that 1-year plan. So we just set the 1-year plan for, and we do those on a federal fiscal year, and we publish those on our website, which we did in October for the coming fiscal year. So I would say that in terms of the schedule, we're adaptively managing where we're at and setting those. Each year we look at where we are and where we go. And I would say those schedules that we put out for the coming year are always a little bit of a stretch, deliberately so. But I think we continue to feel confident that we are making good progress. And like I said, in some cases ahead of where we need to be relative to some plans, and then keeping pace, I think, in the bigger picture in terms of continuing to chip away at the backlog.
Thank you.
Great job that team has done. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Okay. So we've got, there she is. We've got Eastern Region, and our Eastern Region Administrator, Shannon Davis, is joining us on screen today. Welcome, Shannon. Shannon, yeah, if you could cover, Shannon, for the report, and of course, commissioners, if you have questions on, any of these for Eastern Region, but I was going to ask Shannon just to verbally cover 4.2 and 4.3 for us, and because I think those are the ones we should cover today. Shannon.
Thanks. Chair George, commissioners, greetings from sunny Eastern Oregon. And my internet is notoriously unstable this week, so apologies in advance for that. But a couple of what I would consider to be milestones in Eastern Oregon. One is the Port of Moro's wastewater permit modification has been issued, it's been signed, it's being implemented. And included in that permit is the most important quality or characteristic to that is by 2025, there'll be no more winter application of wastewater that has nitrate in it, or nitrogen in it. So there's just been, I think, a sea change for the agency working with the Port of Moro in that, and they signed the permit and did not appeal it. We are still in negotiation for the compliance schedule and enforcement. So that's just really good news. Everybody worked hard to get that done. And the other thing is also what I would consider a real positive for the agency, which Lori Pillsbury could have talked about if she wanted to, but it's the water quality study in the Southern Deschutes area. And the lab does testing around the state in different areas. And this kind of testing helps to prevent groundwater management areas like the one we have near Boardman. And they'll be sampling of on-site residential septic properties in the spring and then again in the fall. And just to let you know, there's just been the reason why there's a nitrate issue there is simply well, maybe three reasons. One is there's been an explosion of development and folks moving in and developing and having homes with on-site systems. The second one is since that explosion, a lot of the good lots that have the good soil have been taken up. And the soil itself is not, it percolates very quickly. It's that basalt dust, if you will. But Lori's group, we've collaborated with Deschutes County, as well as the lab and folks out here in Eastern Region to scope it. And we're just really excited about getting testing done. So that's what I have, and happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Addington.
Shannon, I was just curious on the port and the winter application. Is there a distinction to be made between water that has nitrate and water that doesn't? Is there still possibility for application, or is it all come from the same source? In other words, some of the water users for cooling, for the technology stuff, that's, I assume, fairly clean.
Yeah.
But is it all come through the same pipe?
Yeah, Commissioner, Chair George, Commissioner Addington, great question. Usually the winter application does have the wastewater containing nitrogen because the cooling for the data centers often just occurs in the summertime and is not necessarily needed in the wintertime, if that answers your question.
Yeah, if I'd have thought just a little longer on that, I probably could have came up with that myself.
That's what we're here for.
Well, let me just chime in here that, Administrator Davis and I ask these questions all the time, don't we? So it's, these are fair questions, and trying to figure out, the situation out there and what all do they, need to do to land apply the water to keep, the system going as it is. That's exactly what we've been working with the port on over the last year, really, in updating this permit. So as Shannon says, this is really a milestone that this permit is issued. And I think that the biggest hallmark of this last year, having Shannon in her role has really helped, and we've developed a lot of relationships with folks out there. So folks at the port, but also the folks that receive the port's water, right? Those that are actually doing the land applying, and having those conversations and developing more understanding and more learning, I think has helped all of us. It's helped the permit writers on DEQ side, and it's helped those that are regulated or receiving the water understand where we're coming from. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Shannon. Okay, all right. Moving right along here. Next up, we have Northwest Region. And there is Christine, our newest addition to our leadership team family. Christine Spekovich is our Northwest Region administrator. So Christine, maybe you could, if you don't mind, start off with, again, commissioners, please, if you have questions on others of these, but Christine, if you could start off with 5.2 and 5.3 and 5.5.
I'd be glad to, Interim Director Felden. Chair George, members of the commission, my name is Christine Spekovich, and I'm DEQ's current and new Northwest Region Administrator. We've got a number, as we do with the rest of the state, we have lots of permitting actions going on. And so I'll highlight a couple of those right now. And the first is related to Columbia Steel Casting Company, which is a long-standing foundry in North Portland that DEQ regulates in a number of different ways. And I won't read through all the elements that are included here in the report for you, but glad to follow up with any questions. But did want to highlight that we recently received a beneficial use determination to move some of the material that's on at the facility today to use in the construction of a new commercial facility in the close area of where the Columbia Castings is at in North Portland. And so we're going through the process of working with the community because there's an interested community group and multiple groups that we've worked with on various ways over the years. And so we do have a hearing scheduled and are going to a couple meetings, including the Columbia Slough Watershed Council meeting later this week to explain what our what was proposed and where we're at with the beneficial use determination. Moving on to 5.3, Owens Brockaway is a glass facility that we've been working with on some compliance issues and some permitting issues over the last couple years. We are working and fairly close, and so I would expect at some point this calendar year in 2023, we'll be at a place where we'll have a new draft permit that will go out for public comment for this facility that incorporates some of the or all of the elements in the compliance actions as well as Cleaner Air Oregon. So because of the history of the facility, there's a great deal of interest by various groups and individuals in this permitting. And so we're working right now on what our communications plan will be so that we can engage with those who are interested and would like to engage with us on this draft permit. And then Leah, I apologize, Interim Director, did you want me to touch on 5.4 or 5.5?
No problem at all.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem, Christine. Yeah, 5.5, I think would
Okay.
be of interest. Thank you so much.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So Chair George, members of the commission, one more note as it relates to permitting the Zenith Oil Terminal, which is also in Portland and has had a great deal of public interest in lots of different ways that both the way DEQ regulates as well as approvals by the city of Portland. They've recently submitted to us a new permit application that and a approved land use compatibility statement that is linked to what their future plans are in the city of Portland. And so we're in the process of evaluating that application to determine its completeness. And once that we've determined it's complete, if we get to that point, we then will be working on drafting a permit. I do expect that also will happen in this calendar year in 2023. And so as part of the permit drafting, we will be working on an extensive communication and outreach plan since we know there'll be a great deal of interest. Thank you very much and glad to answer any questions.
Well, and congratulations to you, Christine. That's great news.
Thank you, Chair George.
Okay. All right.
It's like, that's good.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine. Okay. And last but not least, we have Western Region, and we have two updates there. And our administrator for Western Region, Keith Anderson, has joined us. Welcome, Keith. Thanks for being here. And I'd love it if you wanted to cover both of your items today.
Very well. Chair George, Commissioners, for the record, my name is Keith Anderson. I'm the Western Region Administrator for DEQ. Have a couple of items to talk about today. First one is a cleanup project in Ashland, and I flagged this because actually when I wrote this update, we had planned to have a public meeting there in Ashland to discuss the plan to remediate a former rail yard, and that rail yard is sort of northeast of downtown Ashland, so it's a chunk of property that's right in town of real interest to folks who are in the city of Ashland and of course to the city of Ashland itself. The facility, the site was contaminated by a variety of contaminants, which were outlined in the material we provided to you today. Had a plan in place to remediate that facility and make that property available again for reuse. We slowed down just a little bit on that, but we anticipate being able to move forward with that cleanup soon. But it has the potential to be in the news, I guess. Felt it was worth commenting on. Second item has to do with wildfire recovery and ARPA funding. I think we've mentioned to you before, we've issued a number of contracts for $15 million of ARPA funding that we received in 2021. And we have a number of contracts that are signed right now. We had a second tranche of ARPA projects that we did an RFP for. We, as you can see, got quite a bit of interest in that second round, substantially more dollars in proposals than we have dollars to provide. We're at the point now where we're close to being able to identify successful applicants for that. So we're very excited to have that money going out. We have a lot of really interesting projects associated with that money, including some wildfire recovery projects that are in process. We identified a couple of those for you. One in the Blue River and McKenzie Valley area, and then one in the Santiam Canyon. And the reason we wanted to highlight those is that there is potential for the work in those areas to end up before the commission, depending on what size of project ultimately gets built. The three basin rule is a factor in all the projects that are listed here. And depending again on whether or not the projects are going to be able to be built out to accommodate, everything that the people in Santiam Canyon and in the McKenzie Valley envision, I think everybody sees this as an opportunity for growth and economic development. But that sort of competes with the requirements of the three basin rule. So you're going to hear more about that, I think, in coming months, but wanted to flag those particular things as a note that we're very engaged in wildfire recovery still and anticipate a lot of work in those areas in the coming months. That ends my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Keith. Any questions on the Western Region items today?
No questions, but it's nice to see Keith's face again. It's been a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Not seeing any
Okay.
questions.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
And just again, thanks to all the administrators. I like when they have the opportunity to present on these things that they are so close to. And I've maybe two things that I would add. We have a little bit, I'm cognizant of the time, and maybe even give you guys a couple-minute break if the chair would like before public forum, but a couple updates on what I've been doing in the last several weeks since we met. In December, I traveled to Washington, D.C., which is kind of a rare need when you're, working at the state level. But Gary was part of this meeting as well, virtually. But I traveled there with members of the Yakima Nation, and we met with the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Michael Connor. And so that's within the Army Corps of Engineers. And so we met with the Assistant Secretary at the Pentagon to talk about Bradford Island and the continuing struggles to reach a federal facilities agreement. So just as a reminder, that site, the Bradford Island cleanup site, is a site that between Oregon, Washington, Yakima Nation, EPA, and the Army Corps, we've been working on trying to come up with a plan to clean up that site for 15, 17 years. And frankly, we've been mostly just working on the relationships between the governments for 15 to 17 years. That's unacceptable. So the site was finally listed on the Superfund as a Superfund site on the national priorities list. But since that time, and we're closing in on about a year now, right? we've been unable to enter into a federal facilities agreement with the Army Corps. And that's the agreement that you would enter into specifically when you're a federal facility that's a Superfund site. So progress is stalled. It is just simply stalled. And so that's why we took this step to go and meet with the Assistant Secretary, who granted us a meeting, which was great. That was December 6th, and we felt like it was a very good meeting. And I'm going to commit to updating you at future meetings on this, but I can say as of today, January 19, we really haven't had much in the way of response or movement since that meeting. So I don't want to go so far as to say nothing is happening. I think between the Army Corps and EPA, there probably are some discussions happening, and it hasn't made its way out to the broader group of us. But at the moment, we're not hearing a whole lot of movement. So just wanted you to know that that we had that meeting, and we're hopeful that some progress can come from that meeting. Yeah, please.
What was the origin of that contamination? Did we tour that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was the creation of and aftermath of the Bonneville Dam.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just dumping waste off the kind of the cliff, the edge of the island, and just remaining there for decades.
It was a lot of electrical equipment
Yeah.
was disposed of.
Oh, that's right.
PCBs.
That kind of stuff, yeah.
PCBs.
Yes, they're still there. And then the other quick thing, just to say that twice a year, I think is our schedule. And naturally, I haven't always been involved in these meetings, but at times I've attended on behalf of the past directors when they couldn't attend. But we have what's called the Pacific Northwest Directors Meeting that happens twice a year. And so that's a meeting of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Alaska DEQ directors, and also includes the Canadian provinces, and also includes the Region 10 administrator of EPA. And so that's a meeting for updates from EPA, state to federal understanding, some international sharing, and an opportunity within the Region 10 states to talk about different issues, how we are handling them, and areas where we might need to partner together. So we had this just 2 weeks ago, maybe in Seattle. And so some of our topics included working with tribes, and we tend to, a couple of us have asked to have that as a recurring topic at our meetings due to its importance. Another topic we talked about, which I think will be coming more to the commission over the next few years, is mining for those products we're going to need to electrify. And just really starting to have those serious conversations about the fact that, in order to have all of these batteries, lithium and cobalt are going to need to be mined. And where is that going to happen, and what will be the standards around it? Who has standards? Who needs to work on their standards? So those are early conversations, but not super early. So it was great to be able to talk to other state partners about that, to talk to some of the Canadian officials about that, to have EPA hear that, as they want to, push more for electric batteries. So just good conversations there that I wanted you to know are happening.
And how are those conversations going to impact like the existing mining operations or mines that are like sort of maybe haven't actually started active mining, but they're
Right.
in the process of getting permits? And
Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner Schlesser. So in Oregon, we have a little bit of exploration going on right now. The exploration is governed by DOGAMI, that agency. if they were to decide after exploration that they want to mine, then they would need to apply for permits that would include DEQ and Dogami. So we were involved in this exploration phase through Dogami, and we get to comment also on their exploration permits, but it's not a DEQ permit. So, you know, part of what we're looking at for Oregon, of course, in some states, this is already occurring, but for Oregon, we're looking at what do our regulations look like around this? Are they old? Are they outdated? Are they sufficient? And what would this look like? So we're just kind of in those early conversations right now.
That's great. I'm really glad these conversations are started. So if, say, a mine goes beyond the exploration phase and it does get a DEQ permit, and then we strengthen the standards, how would that impact any existing permits that might already be out there?
Well, in terms of lithium mining or chemical process mining, there really aren't permits out there right now. That would be kind of a new phase for Oregon. And it would depend on the actual rules and laws. Is something, you know, retroactive or not? It would really depend.
Good questions to consider as we
Did you want to answer that, Gary?
Well, I would just say for a chemical process mine, there's actually a specific kind of consolidated permitting process that's run by Dogami, but all the DEQ permits would be incorporated in there. And there's actually specific DEQ rules addressing chemical process mining that have never been used.
Haven't been used yet.
But they're on the books. And they're, you know, the Grassy Mountain facility is also kind of going through that process right now. Not a lithium mine, obviously, but so. That's the lead, and those kind of chemical process mining they incorporate. There's both like water quality issues and solid waste issues associated with mines, plus Dogami issues and potentially other issues as well. But all that's wrapped up into the Dogami consolidated permitting process.
That's all I have for you, commissioners, and I apologize, Chair George. I did not give you extra time that I thought I was going to give you there. So
That's all right. That's okay. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions, comments for report. All right. Well, thank you. Then let's go ahead and ask Stephanie's help in getting us or preparing us for public forum. I think it might be a good idea to take 5. What do people think about that? Quick 5-minute break. And then when we return at 2:07 approximately, we will jump right into the public forum.
Thank you, Chair George. This is Stephanie Caldera, your Commission Assistant. I will now pause the recording, and when we return, we will discuss how people sign up for public forum. Thank you. And thank you, Chair George. This is Stephanie Caldera, your Commission Assistant. On screen, I will show directions for people who wish to present comment during public forum. Please use the raise hand function, often found on your reactions panel. If you are connected by phone, press *9, and that will do the same. And we'll just take a moment for people to find that raise hand function or *9 if by phone. And I will tally those names for you, Chair George and Commissioners. And Chair George, Commissioners, this is Stephanie Caldera, your Commission Assistant. At this time, we have 2 people with a raised hand indicating interest in presenting public comment today. And we will continue to keep that option open for folks as they join the meeting. But when you are ready, Chair George, we will be able to have our first person who is in our speakers queue, who is Dale Feek.
Thank you. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Stephanie?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm Dale Feek from Forest Grove. Chair Kathleen George and volunteer commissioners for all the work that you do. Thank you. I sent written comment to you via Stephanie, and I also CC'd it to the Washington County Commissioners. And in my written comment, I say, Chair Kathleen George followed Senator Jeff Merkley's keynote speech at the Environmental Law Educational Center's conference, January 11th, at the Forestry Center. Both were inspirational and very informative, as well as Representative Ken Helms, as he's the chair of the House Committee on Agricultural, Land Use, and Water. And as I said, I sent the same email to Catherine Harrington, chair of the Washington County Commissioners and the other commissioners. And I said, because of Senator Jeff Merkley's keynote speech about 50 years Clean Water Act, and I got a copy of his speech, it's about 5 minutes. And because John Patterson reacted so eloquently about Dr. Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, in my email, I said, I forwarded the following to you, and I gave all of you, that's the county commissioners, and many others. I've given over 45 books away. John Patterson's book, Footprint, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Extinction. And I know some of you commissioners are very serious and concerned about climate change and global warming. And I appreciate that, because we are in a mass extinction if we don't do some drastic things. And John Patterson said, well, I just listened to Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech. John Patterson said this, and he says, I remember when he gave that speech, it was on the evening of news. It touched a chord in every American. His were the words of truth, just like the gospel, ringing true to every soul. And he says, Mike Patterson says, on my bike ride to all the states, and then I have a link for you if you read my email. He says, I took time in DC to ride up to and read all the engraved words of Dr. King preserved on the King Memorial on the mall. His thoughts were not confined to racial equity, as you are involved in racial equity in what you do at the Environmental Quality Commission, DEQ. They transcended even that. He foresaw an America first dreamed about by Jefferson and others with monuments on the mall. Martin Luther King was a great, great man and a great, great American. So I would encourage you to take a look at the link that I sent. John Patterson wrote his bicycle is solar paneled energy bicycle powered in every state of the United States, and ended up in Washington, D.C. and talked, I assume, Senator Merkley in our delegation and other people, legislators that would listen to him. So anyway, I want to thank you, Kathleen George, for giving a very inspirational and very informative speech. I hope to be able to get a recording of that and get it transcribed, because I think it'd be good for all the other commissioners and also DEQ staff to listen to what you said. We're so fortunate to have you as chair of the Environmental Quality Commission. Now, I'm ending that topic. I'm going to a new topic. The second topic is biosolids, or sludge is the technical term for sewage. And I was glad to see on one of the slides today that biosolids are going to be looked at because of the PFAS chemicals. And I've made public comment to you before about PFAS, and the new standards are going to come out are going to be very strict. And I think, as I've made comment before on the book Exposure by Robert Billet, Poisoned Water, Corporate Greed, and One Lawyer's 20-Year Battle Against DuPont on PFAS chemicals, because DuPont ended up making people sick and also some of them dying. But I got to connect with Robert Billet, and I appreciated what Washington County Clean Water Services have done, because they did a pretty good analysis of PFAS chemicals coming into their system. And so I got real good data. That's Bob Baumgarter. And I got that data and I sent it to Robert Billet, and he and I were going to meet in Eugene, but that got canceled. But my point is, the Environmental Working Group got all of Robert Billet's stuff, and they have it cataloged. And so I got on there and I looked, and it appeared to me in Eastern Oregon, there was a higher incidence of PFAS. And I couldn't figure out why. But I do know that biosolids are trucked from Washington County over to Eastern Oregon. And so I don't know, but there could be a link. And so I'm certainly glad that there's going to be a study or something, and then studies are important, as you say, going to be a study on that, because there could be PFAS chemicals being shipped to Eastern Oregon. And I did hear through rumor mill that some organic farmers won't use that biosolids or sludge because they can't be certified as organic. So anyway, I'm glad that you're studying that. Or a task force, as you said, legislators, people said that. So, I've gone more than 2 or 3 minutes because I guess there are only 2 of us going to speak today. So anyway, thanks for listening. And again, I want to emphasize that I'm sure glad that we have Senator Jeff Merkley and our team in Washington, D.C. And I'm glad that we have you, Kathleen George, as chair, and also all the other 4 of you volunteering your time to be serious about land, water, and air in Oregon. And I'm glad that I guess I'm glad I had more time today. So thank you for listening. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dale. Always good to hear from you. Yeah, we figured that since we only had 2 hands up, we could let you finish your thoughts. But now we're pleased to welcome our next speaker.
And thank you, Chair George. This is Stephanie Caldera, your commission assistant. The next person with a hand up is Reuven Goldenberg, who should now be able to unmute themselves to begin.
Hello, everybody. I'm Reuven Goldenberg, and I'm calling for North Plains, Oregon. Maybe it's going to be unusual for you guys, but I'm here because my air quality is different than everybody else. So the issue that I have, and it's happening for a very long time, is that from time to time, we're getting a very strong compost odor from Recology facility not far from my house. I contacted everybody. It means even Metro. I contacted DEQ manager Audrey O'Brien and contacted Washington County. We filled many email complaints with a dedicated email address for odor complaints. And we are still getting blasted by odors. And the last Thanksgiving, we had air stagnation. And for 2 days, there was this compost odor all around the area. And I was embarrassed because my guests were asking me, what's going on here? Why it's so smelly here? So I asked myself how this is possible that we are living in 2023 now, and we're still getting some kind of problems with air quality. Why these facilities allowed to operate in such a close proximity to residential area? Why the Oregon law is not enforced on this facility? Why they are permitted to stink my air? This is, it's very unusual to be here in front of you guys, but I don't know what else to do. I want to breathe clean air and I want to enjoy outdoors. And when I sleep at night in the summer with open windows, I don't want to smell compost. That's it. I want to have the right to smell clean air. This is why I'm here. So I know it's unusual, but this is why I decided to come to this committee and bring this to your attention.
Thank you for doing that, sir. We appreciate it. If we can, what we'd like to do is work with our interim director to follow up with you. We do know that orders are very difficult issues to deal with, but we would like to have somebody on our staff follow up with you.
Yes,
so can we get that information from you?
Sure. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll be happy to do whatever needed.
Okay.
Stephanie could probably get his contact information.
Yeah, Stephanie, can you follow up and get a phone number or something like that for us?
Yes, Chair George, this is Stephanie Caldera, the commission assistant. I will try to connect with our commenter in a non-public venue to get contact information for follow-up. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And Chair George, commissioners, this is Stephanie Caldera again, your assistant. At this time, there are no other hands raised, indicating an interest in presenting comment today on screen, just as a reminder to participants. If you would like to present comment to the commission today, please use the raise hand function, usually found on your reactions panel if you're connected through Zoom online, or if you're connected by telephone, you can press *9 for that same indicator. And Chair George and Commissioners, at this time, there are no additional raised hands showing on our display screen here today.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you to those who did share their thoughts with us. So we do have a couple of minutes before we go on to our last executive session and then action item of the day. And that's okay. I actually think that that works out just perfectly. Stephanie, is it possible for you to make yourself visible for a minute? Possible, well, it may be possible, you may not want to, but.
Yes, Chair George, apologies, just adjusting in the room here that it's a slightly less presentable conference room than you are in.
That looks just perfect. And none of us are going to pretend that we haven't done that ourselves. So you don't have to worry about that. We have just a few minutes here. And so I think that actually works out just perfect. One of the things that I think is really important to do before we finish up our last two agenda items of the day is to recognize that today is Stephanie Halleck's last official Caldera, sorry, Halleck. Well, you know, she actually moved on a long time ago. And I'm not going to ask you to take up her role either, Stephanie Caldera. No, past directors is not where our agenda is going today. I apologize for that. Stephanie Caldera, this is her last official EQC meeting where she's fulfilling her role as the assistant to the Environmental Quality Commission. And Stephanie, how long have you been doing this role?
Thank you, Chair George. I have been your EQC assistant and those EQCs before you since October 2008.
So you may have worked with Stephanie Halleck, did you?
Just after her.
Just after her. Okay. Well, we can leave her out from then on. I think it's really important to acknowledge this. Stephanie's dedication to this work. And this unusual work, this work that takes an incredible amount of flexibility.
Multi-skilled,
multi-talented, and to work with, I mean, not just the five of us, right? But how many different commissioners, I wonder, has Stephanie worked with over her time? I mean, hopefully it's not so difficult that you're keeping count, but I have to say that you really are a truly extraordinary assistant. And I know that we would be in big trouble without the many favors that you've done for us. So I want to provide the opportunity for the commissioners here and for our interim director to just share any thoughts or any things that they want to with the amazing Stephanie Caldera on her last official EQC meeting.
Chair George, maybe if I might, I'll give the commissioners a moment to think, and I'll just go ahead for the record. Leah Felden, interim director, and I really want to. Well, it's really not possible to thank Stephanie enough for her years and her service to DEQ, to this commission, to many directors and deputies, and all of the work that it takes to make these meetings happen and for them to go as smoothly as they do. All of that really rests in Stephanie's hands over the years. And, quite obviously that has been a real challenge through COVID and figuring out how to go completely virtual. And it's actually even sometimes more challenging now as we try and do a hybrid, meeting. And Stephanie has weathered all that very coolly, as everyone has seen throughout all of these meetings. But even before COVID, there have been times, at least since I've been at DEQ too, where we've had, not the usual 6 meetings a year where Stephanie, I don't remember that one special year where I think we had like 16. And so the preparation that goes into these meetings isn't really something that the public sees, and it's not something that even most DEQ staff see when they come to present all of the days and hours in advance and making everything go so smoothly. And the good news is, and I'll let Stephanie tell you all what her next adventure is, but the good news is her next adventure is still within DEQ.
Yes.
So we still get to see her. We just won't get to have her at every commission meeting, but someday you might have her at a different table at a commission meeting in the program that she's going to. So Stephanie, would you want to tell the commissioners what you're about to do?
Yes, and thank you, Interim Director Felden. So as noted, I am moving to a different role at DEQ. I will be with the materials management program, and in fact, you will see me as a presenter sometime, but perhaps sooner than later, working on some of the rulemakings that both materials management and a couple other land quality programs are working on. So I'll be moving into that role more officially in February and more fully as we sort of make that transition over. And yeah, but appreciated this today and also all the time working with you all. So thank you.
So materials management's very lucky. They're about to inherit the most seasoned person in the agency of 800 at presenting before the commission.
Absolutely. The one person who knows is never gonna have to worry about having like butterflies with dealing with them. They're like, oh, I know all about this.
So I'm so glad you're staying within DEQ, Stephanie. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna miss working so closely with you as we have over these years. I appreciate you so much.
And congratulations on your new role. We know that they are getting a tremendous asset and that you are going to do great work in
Give
that
others a
capacity.
chance. Yeah.
So I'm just going to say thank you, Stephanie. You have made this role as a commissioner so easy. And I agree with everything that Leah said, because it's rare to really see the person who shows up first and leaves last. And that is you.
Right.
I've seen you do everything in between when you're setting up these meetings and managing us and everything else. So I know a lot of that goes unseen by the public, unseen by other people, but I always know that you're there well ahead of all of us, and then you're tidying up after the chaos of this. So I'm so happy that you get to move on and try another set of tricks. So I look forward to running into you again. It's been fun.
I'll just say, Stephanie, I appreciate through all of this. I think folks have said it. You've always remained cool through all of the little things that have played out. Whether it's picking up a text message, me letting you know I'm getting to my Madras at midnight, and am I going to be able to get a hotel room or something like that? Like I feel like you picked up, you picked up and managed anytime we've needed and been there and just taken each of it in stride and not ever, just taking all of it. And I really appreciate how you've been able to support us and that you've been there, whether it's offering just some cool insights as we're talking through the agenda and just some suggestions around how to make things work smoother in order to make it work, and just offering your insights as a staff person to how it's going to fall and reflect for staff. And just in all those ways you showed up and been a great asset and a support. And I'm really happy that the agency gets the benefit of getting to have you around. So thank you. And absolutely look forward to seeing you in a different role in the future.
Yeah. Seriously, I wrote down Madras in the middle of the night. Same thing.
We've all been there.
No, I'm so impressed by you, Stephanie, and I just want to thank you for all the help. I mean, exactly. I mean, every little thing, like, I don't know what to do about this. Can I fit in the parking garage? Everything. Just, I really, really appreciate it. Always very responsive, very professional. And I mean, I just can't even imagine the stuff we see, but the stuff we don't see, the one fire drill after another that you have to go through and be the tech support and then clean it up and then write the minutes. And then, I mean, it's fantastic. You do an amazing job. And if you ever want to leave public service, let me know.
Point of order.
The university is a great work environment.
I think there's Slusher.
I think Amy has something to say.
Commissioner Slusher.
I want to echo everybody else's thanks. You have been incredible. You have made it so easy for me to join the commission and get up to speed and stay organized. I mean, the emails that you provide before meetings, for giving us all the information we could possibly need, are so incredibly helpful. And I know everything that you do that goes into the meetings takes a ton of time, but even just that logistical information and communicating with us is so helpful. And I have seen you in the relatively short time that we've worked together deal with some incredible headaches that would have probably made me leave the room screaming. And you put in the time ahead of time and you make sure everything's going to work. And then it just doesn't always happen that way. And you deal with it in stride. And that is an amazing skill set that I'm sure will serve you very well moving forward. But yeah, we are going to miss you so much, but very happy that you're staying with DEQ. And yeah, stay with the public sector. It's my recommendation.
I just
There's
wonder
a
how-
reason I set myself up to go last. All right, what is it, Greg? What is it?
No, go ahead.
No, I guess I'm going last. I'm
I just was gonna,
So sweet.
Leah, how do you possibly write a job description for this?
Yes, we're still
Covers a lot of ground.
working on that. It's not an easy thing to do.
Bird 5 cats that are commissioners too,
Exactly.
right?
Well, there's that, and Stephanie also, she assists in material review. I'm not sure
Yes,
if you all, realize that, but, and she's really skilled at that. And I think we are going to have to come to the reality that we aren't going to get another Stephanie, at least not right away. It's going to take someone some time to gather the skills, the talent, the expertise that she's gathered in this role over the years. So it's a big loss, and it won't be filled immediately. And that's, we'll work through that. But better, we're all better for having had her in the role.
Very true. And Stephanie, I'm trying to think, and I'm wondering if you're the person at DEQ I've known the longest. We've made reference to the fact that 15, 20 years ago, I did environmental policy work, and I came to Environmental Quality Commission meetings and bothered people and annoyed them and asked them to deal with issues that they didn't want to deal with on behalf of folks I worked for. And I'm wondering, because I would have known you before Jennifer Weigel even.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you may be, the last Jazzy Cat standing. So, so what an ambassador for DEQ. In addition to what she
Always on it.
in addition to everything that you do to keep us, civilians who come wandering in with good intentions and no idea what we're doing, moving in the right direction so that we can keep the business of this agency moving. We can give the support we need to the staff who work so hard for the people and the resources of Oregon. But you're a tremendous ambassador. You're also the person who, whether it's in person or online, you welcome the people, you get the meeting set up, you find where people can obtain coffee, all the important things, you make all the electronics work, and you always do it with grace and dignity, no matter what goes wrong. And let's face it, we've had some wild things go on. And I have to say, as someone who's been fortunate to work with a wide variety of assistants at this point in my career, you're the assistant everybody's looking for. Everybody wants you. You are grace under pressure. You are always available, or we know exactly when you will be available. And everything from, like we said, dealing with people doing things they shouldn't be doing on Zoom calls, to technical difficulties, to being challenged with the unique decor that can be found in certain meeting locations in Pendleton, Oregon, or to me standing in front of the elevators this morning, trying to flip through, 60 emails. Stephanie, what floor are we on today? What room? And I know you'll be there to remind me what floor we're on. So. Again, I raise my hand to you, my dear friend. I'm so glad you're going on to do amazing work here. But please know you will be very, very missed.
Well, and just thank you all. And I really appreciate the the notes today, and as always, just have treasured working with you all. And Gary unfortunately doesn't get to get rid of me too easy. He remains the Land Quality Division Contact Counsel. So I will properly follow chain of command when conferring with him from the materials management side of things. But look forward to the opportunity to be at your presenter table sometime later this year.
We look forward to that as well. And let's just say this out loud. So this is Stephanie's last official EQC meeting. It's not her last official day in this role. She's going to be continuing that. She's also going to assist with the transition. So we're not completely in the deep end of the pool just yet. And yet, at some point, you may have to block our phone numbers. And just probably say that because, you know, the day may come where you're just going to have to make us move on. And I think we just better address it now. All right. So thank you, everyone, for making a little bit of time for that. I felt it was one of the most important things on our agenda today. However, we do have another important thing that we have to take on. And we've got a little extra time.
Yeah, what would you like to do, Chair? How would you can move into executive session, take a break. You can move everything up a little bit earlier if you would like, that would be okay too.
So folks, what do you think about this? What about a kind of shortish break, maybe 10 minutes? And then what's the will of the group? Do you want a longer break or do you want to take maybe a short break and then move right into executive session?
As somebody who has to drive, I wouldn't mind ending early today,
Okay.
assuming that Nancy's available and
Yeah,
we're
I
not
don't see a
expecting
reason you
and we're
couldn't.
not expecting anybody to come in. So I personally would like to push through
Yeah, me too.
So no break or minimal.
or minimal.
Okay.
What time would you like to start the public part
Yeah,
of this again? Would
That's
be
the part we
best
really
thing.
do have
Yeah.
to be clear about.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, and I do have to say, who knows? I don't anticipate that we're probably going to need 30 minutes for item G. I
Okay.
mean, I could be wrong, but I'd be a little surprised. And since we do know that there might be some, people in the public who are interested in that, it might be advisable to try to keep that at 3:30. What do people think? We could probably move it up a little bit.
Would you like to start at 3:15?
3:15 for that? Okay,
Okay. I mean, so we're just, because it's been noticed and that's what the public's.
and there's some public that are gonna have some interest
Sure.
in this one. Okay, so let's do that. Let's come back for our action item G at 3:15. We're gonna take a brief break and then we're going to go into executive session.
And thank you, Chair George. This is Stephanie Caldera, your assistant. At this time, I will pause our recording. We'll leave the Zoom room open for a couple moments with a slide on screen showing those actions. The public element of the meeting will reconvene at 3:15 p.m. today.